So I am here today to film a book haul, but very specifically a ebook haul or Kindle book haul because I read all my ebooks on my Kindle, and this is inspired by the fact that in my last book haul where I mentioned completely letting loose and having lost all self-control in terms of buying books, that I bought quite a few ebooks recently. So I asked if you'd be interested in seeing a specific Kindle book haul, and I had lots of responses in the positive that wanted to see that, and you know what, I'm here to give you what you want. So I've actually gone back through all of the Kindle books I've bought this year, so in the past sort of 2.5 months, and will be sharing with you what they are here. A lot of these I bought in 99p, and this is where I get into dangerous territory with Kindle books, in that if I see a book I'm interested in that's 99p, I don't know how to not click that buy button. So I will say I didn't spend a ton of money, or at least didn't spend much money on each of these books individually, but they always add up even if you're paying 99p or $1.99, so that's not to minimise the expense of books no matter what format that they're in. But yeah, I kind of lost all self-control this year in terms of just clicking that buy button and ended up with a lot of bargain books. Now a lot of them aren't 99p anymore because I bought them on like short-term Kindle deals, but I will link them all down below so you can check them out yourself, and I can see that some of them are still 99p or $1.99, so not terribly expensive in the UK at least. But without further ado, let's crack on and take a look at the books. Apologies if I do glance down a lot, it's because I'm looking at my laptop, which is where I've opened all the books up on so I don't forget any. Although in fact, before I get onto the books that I have bought myself on Kindle, I wanted to mention a few that were sent to me as gifts, because as I don't usually include Kindle books in my regular book hauls, I haven't had a proper opportunity to thank the gifter of these books who sent them to me via email. And I did mention it on Instagram that I'd been sent these books and said thank you, but I know not everyone follows me on Instagram, and they were also sent anonymously, so I couldn't get in touch with the person. But to whoever you are, and I respect your right to remain anonymous if you would prefer, although let me know if it was you, I am so incredibly grateful that you sent me these gifts. I'm so excited to read them, and I was just absolutely blown away when they appeared in my inbox. They may very well have been intended as birthday presents, as this is my birthday month, but regardless, thank you so much. So those books were, for those who are curious, The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. This is a contemporary romance novel, and I'm pretty sure it's Chelsea from Chelsea Dolling Reid's favourite contemporary romance of all time. At least it's definitely up there, and I've heard her and other romance readers absolutely rave to death about this book, so it's been on my wish list for a little while. I don't read as much contemporary romance as I do historical or fantasy romance, but I'm always looking for contemporary romances that I can fall in love with, and because this one has such high ratings and such complimentary reviews, I've always thought that this could be one that I would really enjoy. It's a love-to-hate romance, if the title doesn't give it away, about Lucy and Joshua who are competing at work for the same promotion, but I assume amidst their sort of employment battle to the death, they end up falling in love. So I'm excited to read that one. On a similar topic, we have another contemporary romance, which is The Honeymooners by Christina Lauren. Another one I've heard fantastic things about and really rave reviews about. It's another love to hate romance about a man and a woman who are best man and bridesmaid, maid of honour at their siblings' wedding, but at the wedding everybody, including the bride and groom, ends up with food poisoning except for them, so they end up taking the honeymoon and going on holiday together, although their plan is to avoid each other the whole time whilst they're there and just have a nice time. But of course they end up falling in love themselves. It sounds super cute and I'm excited to read it. Probably the complete opposite genre to romance is thriller, so I'll then mention the gift, which was One by One by Ruth Ware. Now I've still never read a Ruth Ware thriller, despite the fact that she is considered sort of queen of the genre and so many people love her, and for that reason I'm really grateful to have a little bit more of her available to me on my Kindle so I can finally check her out. And this one is set at a remote ski resort where somebody goes missing, and it's one of those claustrophobic, isolated murder mystery books, which sounds fabulous. Then lastly, for the very kind gifts, we have Spellbreaker by Charlie N. Holmberg, which is a fantasy novel, a historical fantasy novel, which sounds absolutely brilliant. And this one's about Elsie Camden, who lives in a world where there's two types of wizards, two types of magic practitioners, those who break spells and those who, like, put curses and spells on things, and she is a Spellbreaker, so she acts as a sort of Robin Hood of this world, where she goes around breaking curses and spells that have been set up by the aristocracy in order to help the common man of her city, of her country. And I think that just sounds absolutely phenomenal. I love a sort of Robin Hood-esque character, so cannot wait to read this one. That then brings me to the books that I've bought myself on Kindle this year, and the first one is the one I've most recently bought and is still 99p whilst I'm looking at it now, so hopefully will be when you look, and that is The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson, which I believe is a fantastical historical horror novel, all of which sounds brilliant, combination of genres I am very, very into. And I believe it's about Emmanuelle, who is a member of a church which hunts down witches, but she herself is potentially drawn to the dark side, to the magic, and I'm just intrigued to see how that all manifests. It sounds brilliant. We then have a sequel, which is European Travel for the Monstrous Gentlewoman, which is book 2 in the Adventures of the Athena Club series by Theodora Goss. So the first book in the series was The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter, which I read last year and absolutely adored. I'm pretty sure I gave it 5 stars. It deserves it if I didn't. And I have been meaning to pick up the sequel, so when I saw that it had been reduced to 99p at the time, which was back in February, I couldn't resist, and I'm super duper excited to now just have access to the sequel and get to it as soon as I can. It's about a group of women who form the Athena Club, and they are all the daughters or creations of mad scientists from classic literature like Dr. Moreau and Dr. Jekyll. So it is just absolutely brilliant, and would highly recommend book 1 and can't wait to read book 2. Then we have another thriller, which is The Lost, a gripping Irish crime thriller with an explosive twist is what Amazon tells me, by Claire McGowan. So I actually read another thriller by Claire McGowan a couple of months ago called The Push and really, really enjoyed it. I was really sold on her writing style and the way she constructs a narrative and plot, so I'd been meaning to check out what else she had to offer, and when I obviously saw that she had another book reduced to 99p, how was I to resist? Obviously, as I've read the subtitle to you there, this one is an Irish crime thriller, and it's about Paula Maguire, a forensic psychologist who has just returned to her hometown where 2 teenage girls have gone missing. Then we have A Stitch in Time by Kelly Armstrong, which I'm just going to read the blurb to you because that is the reason I picked it up. It is about Thorn Manor, which has always been haunted, and it has always haunted Bronwyn Dale. As a young girl, Bronwyn could pass through a time slip in her great aunt's house, where she visited William Thorne, a boy her own age, born 2 centuries earlier. After a family tragedy, the house was shuttered and Bronwyn was convinced that William existed only in her imagination. Now 20 years later, Bronwyn inherits Thorne Manor, and when she returns, William is waiting. I love it. Time travel, a dark gothic manor, and mystery. What more could you want? Then there was another thriller called A Madness of Sunshine by Nalini Singh, which I've already read and reviewed, so you can actually get my full thoughts on that one in my February reading wrap up. But it was a 5-star read, one of my favourite thrillers I've read in a long time, and very much made me interested in checking out more by this author. Although she's predominantly written romance, I definitely want to check out more of her thrillers as well as her romance. And this one was set in New Zealand and is about a woman who moves home after having left her small town in New Zealand years ago, and when she gets there, a young girl goes missing. I mean, that is a bit of a plot cliche, as we've already kind of established from the plots of some other books here, but it was really, really well done. Then we have The Princess Trap by Talia Hibbert. This is another contemporary romance by an author who I've heard phenomenal things about. Everyone's been raving about Talia Hibbert's romances the past couple of years, and I've yet to read one. So when this one was reduced to 99p, how was I to say no? It is about Cherry Nita, who is 30, flirty, and done with men. As far as she can tell, they're overrated, overpaid, and underperforming in every area of life. But a girl has needs, and the smoking hot stranger she just met at the office seems like the perfect one-night stand. Who is this stranger, you ask? Well, I believe from the blurb that he is Prince Reuben of Helgmore, so this, I believe, is a sort of undercover prince romance. The plot immediately reminded me of The Prince and Me, which is a movie from the early 2000s, which I love. It's a cheesy teen classic, so I couldn't resist. Then there's one that I'd absolutely never heard about but was 77p, so I couldn't say no to, and that is Pemberley, Mr. Darcy's Dragon, a Pride and Prejudice variation by Maria Grace. So the reason I actually found out about this is because I'm subscribed to this service called BookBub. It's free to sign up, you just give them your email address, and they send you daily or weekly emails featuring lots of reduced ebooks and ebook deals that you might be interested in based on the genres you've said you're interested in. And this one came up, and it's a Pride and Prejudice retelling of dragons, so honestly, did I need to know more? It was 77p, I bought it. Then there's Woodland Folktales of Britain and Ireland by Lisa Schneidow. So I have another collection of fairy tales by this author, or folklorist, called Botanical Folktales of Britain and Ireland. So when I saw that this collection was reduced to 99p, you know what happened, and they're fairy tales, so I probably don't need to describe them to you any further. But then we have one that was actually £1.99 when I bought it, but that was still a really good deal given how big this book is and how it's still out in hardback and really expensive. Plus it's still £1.99, so if you're interested it will be linked down below, and that is The Devil and the Dark Water by Stuart Turton. So this is the latest book by the author of the 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, which I read not long after it came out, maybe 2 years ago or so, and absolutely adored it. This book was so brilliant and clever, and I recommend it regularly. So I've known ever since then I would pick up what he did next, regardless of what it was, because he's such a clever plot writer and narrator. And again, I did it. I wanted to read this one as soon as I knew it was coming out, but wanted to wait for paperback because it was such a big chunky hardback copy, and then I saw it was reduced on Kindle, so thought, hey, that actually works even better. It's set in 1634 and it's about Samuel Pepys, who's the world's greatest detective, and he's been transported from the Dutch East Indies to Amsterdam, where he's set to face trial for a crime that no one dares speak of. Does that not sound intriguing? Plus Stuart Turton. Continuing on the mystery theme, I actually picked up a YA thriller, and that is One of Us Is Next by Karen M. McManus. So this is the only Karen M. McManus thriller that's currently out that I haven't read, and it's the only one that's a sequel. So it is the sequel to One of Us Is Lying, and I really enjoyed One of Us Is Lying, but I don't read a lot of thrillers which are part of series, so it just never became a priority in my mind. And book 1 very much wraps up and concludes in itself, so it's a new mystery in book 2, which I am hoping means that it doesn't matter that I can't remember any of the names of the characters from book 1. I remember the plot, but do I remember a character's name? No. However, hopefully, like I said, that won't really matter. And this one is about a dangerous game of truth and dare that starts up at an American high school. Then one that I imagine a million people picked up when they saw it was 99p on Kindle, which is Bridgerton, book 1, The Duke and I by Julia Quinn. I haven't watched the TV show, mainly because I'm intrigued to try the books first and don't want to be spoiled, and had meant to read them before the TV show came out but never got around to it, so took the plunge when I saw book 1 was 99p. These are historical Regency romances if you haven't seen them yet, although the TV show or the Netflix show is currently one of the most popular streamed shows out there, so I'm sure you have heard of them. And generally speaking, I've heard really good things and I'm super excited to read book 1, although I did think it was funny because my friend, who is a doctor, was reading one of the later books and had to put it down and give up on it because she couldn't get over how biologically inaccurate the sex scene was, and that did make me chuckle. I'm not sure if it'll bother me as much, not being a doctor, but that might be something to bear in mind. Then we have another sequel, which is Deadly Dreams, book 3 in the Fortuna Sworn series by KJ Sutton. This is one I actually didn't buy reduced. This is one I didn't actually buy because it was 99p, but it is $3.20 and that still seems like a pretty good deal given that you're getting a whole book for it. And this is, like I mentioned, the 3rd book in the Fortuna Sworn series, of which I've read books 1 and 2 and enjoyed. The ending of book 2 left me a little bit disorientated and rattled because it was so dark and there was a depiction of sexual violence. I'm not saying it was done insensitively, but at the time I was quite taken aback by it, so I didn't rush into book 3. But I have still been thinking about the characters and been wondering about what happens to them next, so I now feel prepared to read book 3 and decided when my friend Ashley was talking about the author to take that final plunge and pick it up. And I am really excited and would really recommend the series. I just, like I said, was in a frame of mind at the time where I was like, oh god, I was not expecting that. So yeah, I'm excited to read book 3 and see what is next. It would probably best be described as a dark urban romance fantasy. That's what I would call it. Then we have another fantasy novel, which is Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater, which is actually a fantasy novel set in Regency England, another favourite combination of mine. Ever since a fairy cursed her, Theodora Ettings has no sense of fear, embarrassment or even happiness, a condition which makes her sadly prone to accidental scandal. Dora's only goal for the London season this year is to stay quiet and avoid upsetting her cousin's chances at a husband. But when the Lord Sorcerer of England learns of her condition, she finds herself drawn even more deeply into the tumultuous concerns of magicians and fairies. So this sounds really intriguing. I'm not sure if it's adult or YA. I'm getting mixed messages from Goodreads, but regardless, it sounds really interesting and I can't wait to read it. Then last but not least, we have Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. This is one that has been longlisted and shortlisted for a bunch of prizes, so I'm sure you've probably heard of it, but I've been meaning to read it ever since it came out, partially because of that cover. Look at Pan playing those pan pipes, how could that not sell you? It's about Piranesi, who lives in the house with a capital letter. Perhaps he always has. In his notebooks day after day, he makes a clear and careful record of its wonders. The labyrinth of halls, the thousands upon thousands of statues, the tides that thunder up staircases, the clouds that move in slow processions through the upper halls. On Tuesdays and Fridays, Piranesi sees his friend, the other. At other times, he brings tributes of food to the dead, but mostly he is alone. Messages begin to appear, scratched out in chalk on the pavements. There is someone new in the house, but who are they and what do they want? Are they a friend or do they bring destruction and madness as the other claims? Lost texts must be found, secrets must be uncovered. The world that Piranesi thought he knew is becoming strange and dangerous. I mean, I have no idea what I'm getting myself in for, but it sounds brilliant and it's had, like I mentioned, a lot of praise, so I'm super excited like I am with all of these books. And that brings me to the end of this Kindle book haul. I hope you have enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed learning about the deals that have tricked me into spending my money over the past few months. I would love to hear from you if you've read any of these books or are also interested in reading any of them and what you think of them. But until next time, happy reading and I'll see you all again soon. Bye everyone.